And I already tasted the sanctified flesh upon my tongue.
Albert Fish, Diary of God's Fool, Entry 1, The Gospel of Steel, January 14th, 1936. 2 days unto eternity. Lord, they have taken the light from my window, a thin gray slot high upon the wall that once painted the dust upon the floor. Now there is only stone, a cold womb, hatching me for thee. The guards speak softer when they pass my door. They smell the end upon me, as a dog smells the coming storm. They think it fear. They know nothing of the smell of holiness. The record says they found the needles. 29 they said at trial, perhaps 30. The prosecutor held up the X-ray plate, a ghost of my own pelvis, through which the small silver fish did swim. The jury gasped. A soft rolling sound like dry leaves swept across the pavement. They saw filth, perversion, a nest of rusted steel in an old man. They did not understand the prayer. Each needle, Lord, was a word in that prayer, a vow. I remember the first, a long, thin steel pin stolen from a seamstress. The night was damp, New York sweating through the thin walls of my room. The pain, when the point pierced the skin, was like the ringing of a bell, sharp and pure, a sound that made all else silent. The voices in my head, the memory of my wife, of her scornful face when she left, all became still. There was only the steel, sliding slow and deep, a cold priest administering communion. Pain is pure, pain is clean. I learned that at the orphanage, St. John's. They called it a house for boys, but it was thy first seminary, Lord, the place where thou didst teach me the gospel of the strap. The record says, I saw so many boys whipped, it ruined my mind. Ruined, numbered, shaped, sanctified. The teachers tore the shirts from our backs, that the skin might lie bare for thy sermon. The other boys wept. Their cries were thin and useless. But I felt something rise in my loins, a pillar of fire and flesh. As the leather struck my skin, it sang thy name. In that fire, Lord, I was baptized. They meant to punish me, but they only brought me closer to thee. They administered pain as poison, but my body turned it to wine. Dr. Wortham spoke with me at length, a man with cold hands and eyes like glass marbles. He filled pages upon pages with words. He wrote that I had 18 different paraphilias, more than any man he had studied. He counted my sins as a merchant counts his coins. He spoke of masochism, of sadism, of coprophagia, heavy, learned words that make the holy sound like sickness. He asked me about the needles. "Why, Albert?" he asked, his voice soft and false as a spider's web. "What did it give you? How does one explain the color red to the blind?" I told him it was an offering, a small crucifixion for myself alone. Christ had his nails, large and crude for the sins of the whole world. Mine were small for my own small sins. The needles sang thy song as they entered the flesh, a high, fine humming that only I could hear. They kept me awake at night, small anchors of reality in the sea of my thoughts. When the voices grew too loud, thy voice, Lord, telling me of the offerings thou didst require, I pressed upon the places where they slept. The sharp sting was a reminder. Thou art here. Thou art a tool. Thou art mine. They believe I am mad. Madness was their only explanation. They wrote of my family history, of my mother and her visions, of my brother in the asylum. They saw bad seed. But it was not bad seed, Lord. It was chosen seed. Thou didst mark my family, that I might be receptive to thy message. Thou didst open my ears, that I might hear thee when my wife left me. Her leaving was the chisel that struck away the last remnant of common stone. In the silence she left behind, thou didst begin to speak. Go forth, thou saidst, and test them. Find the lambs. I thirst. The voices. They called it psychosis, auditory hallucinations. To them it was static in the head of a sick man. To me it was the voice from the burning bush. Thou didst command me to torment and castrate small boys. Thy will, not mine. Who am I to refuse the Lord? Am I Abraham? Should I cast away the knife when thou showest me the mountain? The newspapers called me the Gray Man. The McDonald boy's mother gave me that name. She saw me, but she did not see me. She saw only an old, mumbling man. She did not see the angel of the Lord come to take her son. They called me the boogeyman. A child told them that, the little playmate of Billy Gaffney. Out of the mouths of babes, Lord, thou hast ordained praise. The child knew. It saw the monster, but it did not understand that the monster wore a holy mask. My body is a temple, Lord, a strange temple, I know, ruined and defiled in the eyes of the world, but it is thine. Every scar is an altar, every needle a sacred relic. Here in this cell I feel them sometimes, a deep inward itching, an echo of the steel. It is a comfort, an assurance that I am not alone, that the signs of thy covenant are still written in my flesh. Soon they will come. They will lead me to another chair, a chair of wood and leather, just as in the orphanage. But this chair has wires. They wish to cleanse my body with fire. They think it punishment. They do not understand that it is the final anointing, the highest thrill, the last greatest pain that will bring me wholly unto thee. They have taken the light from my window, but soon I shall see thy light, the true light, the light that burns like 1,000 needles. I am ready, Lord. Thy faithful servant, Albert. Entry 2. The Gospel of Paint. January 15th, 1936. One day unto eternity. Lord, this morning the corridor smelled of turpentine. One of the guards had spilled something, a sharp, clean scent that crept through the bars of my door like a serpent from a forgotten time. For a moment, I was no longer here. I was back in the world, a brush in my hand, the sun warm upon my neck. A house painter, Albert Fish, the house painter, an honest trade, one that makes things clean, that covers over the marks of time. They wrote in the record that I was a good father after my wife left. They saw the man who raised his children alone, who put food upon their table. They saw my cracked hands, the fingers stained with white and gray paint. And they saw a laborer, a harmless old man, a facade, Lord. What a masterful facade. Art thou not thyself the greatest of all painters? Didst thou not teach me how it is done? Thou didst paint the world with a thin coat of beauty to hide the bones and fire beneath. Paint is a merciful thing. It covers all. The crack in the wall, the stain of old water, the dark red that will not leave the floorboard. I have spent my whole life smoothing surfaces. In the houses of rich folk in Manhattan, their walls white as unwritten pages. I painted laughter into their parlors and silence into their bedchambers. And while I worked, I prayed. I hummed thy psalms, soft, beneath the sound of my bristles stroking the plaster. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And the mistress of the house smiled and gave me a glass of cold water. She did not see the wolf standing in her sacred halls. She saw only the gray man who made her walls white. My toolbox, Lord, it was an altar on wheels. Beside the brushes and the scrapers, beside the cans of varnish and stain, lay the other tools, the holy instruments, the cleaver, whose edge I kept sharp as a commandment, the saw with the small fine teeth that sang when it met resistance, the butcher knife that fit so perfect in my hand. By day they slept, wrapped in oily rags, smelling of linseed oil and rust. But at night, in my room, they woke. I heard their whisper. They told me of the work yet to be done, of the offerings thou hadst chosen for me. Folk never asked me what I had in my case. They saw a house painter and assumed it was the tools of a house painter. People see only what they expect to see. That is their great sin, their blindness, and it was my greatest blessing. Thou didst make me invisible, Lord, by clothing me in the garb of an old man. The persona, the mask. In the files they call it an alias. Frank Howard. That was my masterpiece. Frank Howard was no house painter. He was a farmer from Westchester, a man with land and money, a man who had work for a boy. I created him, just as thou didst create Adam from clay. I gave him a history, a gentle voice, a tired smile. I wore him like a clean suit, and when I knocked upon the door of the buds, they did not open to a monster. They opened to a promise, to hope in the hard time of the depression. They gave me coffee. They let their child sit upon my lap. Grace, a small warm bird. She kissed my cheek. Her lips were soft. In that moment, Lord, I nearly laughed. The perfection of thy plan, the terrible, beautiful irony. They saw a grandfather, and I already tasted the sanctified flesh upon my tongue. Pain is pure. Pain is a lie. I taught my children to beware of strangers, my own children. I told them the old stories of the black man who waits in the woods. I protected them, and then I went out and became that black man. That is the logic of thy world, is it not, Lord? One must be the lamb to understand the wolf. One must be the father to know how to steal a child. The smell of turpentine is fading now. It smells again of stone and disinfectant, of finality. They have scraped away my facade. They have seen the X-ray of my interior, the needles that shine like stars in my dark flesh. They have read my letters, the words that were hidden beneath the coat of paint. They think they have unveiled me. They think they now see the true Albert Fish. What fools! They see only another layer, the madman, the cannibal. They do not see the priest. They do not see thy tool. The paint is gone, yes, but now they see only the raw, bloody stone beneath. They do not understand the architecture. They do not understand that each layer they strip away brings them only closer to thy terrible holy face. Tomorrow they will come for me. They will lead me into a room that smells of fear and ozone. But I smell only the turpentine, the scent of a clean beginning, of a freshly painted wall, of an empty canvas, waiting for thee to paint thy last bloody masterwork upon it. Thy painted Albert.
In a city that never sleeps, where every light hides a story, and every night whispers, "What if?" one man turns the impossible into your next experience. Michi Sander, the name behind Vegas's most exclusive nights, private villas, secret shows, tables no one else can book. From the Strip to the sky, your access begins here. You don't wait in lines. You walk through velvet ropes. Because in Michi's world, the world waits for you. Discover the art of living at michisander.com. Vegas, done the way it was meant to be.
Entry 3. The Sacrament of Flesh, January 15th, 1936. The last night. Lord, they brought me my supper, a piece of dry chicken and potatoes that tasted of damp earth, a final portion from the world of men, a last supper with no meaning before the true sacrament begins. I ate it slow. I chewed upon each morsel and tasted the fiber of the meat. It was nothing, a dead thing. It held no spirit. It reminded me of the world's great emptiness, of all the food that men put inside themselves to quiet the silence in their bellies. My true supper, the feast that filled my soul for all eternity, was not taken here. It was taken in a forsaken house in Westchester, a house they called Wisteria Cottage. The name was like a line from a poem, a place where the wild grass had grown over the sins of men. Thou hadst prepared this place for me. Thou hadst set the table. She was the offering. Grace. In their records, she is a name. Grace Budd, age 10 years, a number and a date. To them it is a file, a piece of evidence. To me it is a song, a holy verse written in my own blood. In the letter I sent her mother, my own gospel which she could not comprehend, I wrote the truth. How sweet and tender her little rear was, roasted in the oven. The jury made a sound when the prosecutor read it, a sound like animals that smell danger. They took it for boasting, the filth of a wretched old man. It was worship. I see her still, Lord, in her parents' house. A small, crowded room that smelled of boiled cabbage and want. I brought them cheese and strawberries, a humble gift to open their trust. I was Frank Howard, the kindly farmer. I spoke of work for their boy, of good air and a better life. And while I spoke, she sat upon my lap. Her weight was no more than a sparrow's. Her breath smelled of milk. I made up my mind to eat her. It was that simple. It was not a thought. It was a revelation. Thy voice, clear and quiet in the center of my skull. This is the Lamb. Take and eat. The journey to that house was a quiet procession. She chattered of school and of her friends. Innocent little words, like leaves falling in the wind. I scarcely heard. I listened only to the hum inside my blood, the liturgy that was rising in me. At the cottage, I told her to wait outside, to pick the wildflowers. She was a good child. She obeyed. Upstairs, in the dusty room, I took off my clothes. This was needful, Lord. Thou knowest it was. The record says, I knew if I did not, I would get her blood on them. That is the world's truth. The Spirit's truth is that a priest must take off his vestments before he enters the Holy of Holies. One must be naked before his God, clean, an empty vessel waiting to be filled. When I called her, she came up the stairs. Her steps were light upon the groaning wood. When she saw me, standing naked in the gloom from the dirty window, her face did change. The smile was frozen. A knowing dawned in her eyes, not of what was to pass, but only that something was terribly wrong. She began to cry and tried to run down the stairs. The struggle was brief. A small, thrashing creature. How she did kick and bite and scratch. It was not a fight against me. It was her little mortal body fighting against thy great and immortal purpose. I put my hands upon her throat, not in wrath, in reverence. Her skin was soft as flour. I felt the small pulse flutter there like a trapped bird. And then I squeezed. I quieted her. I delivered her from the noise of the world into thy great and holy silence. She died a virgin. This was my gift to her and to thee. The rest was labor, a holy labor. I brought my tools, the cleaver, the saw. It was not an act of ruin. It was an act of transformation. I divided her as a priest breaks the bread, with care, without haste. I cut her in small pieces so I could take my meat to my rooms. Each piece a relic, each cut a prayer. 9 days For 9 days the feast lasted. I cooked her, I roasted her, I stewed her. The smell in my small room was as incense. This was not food for the body, it was nourishment for the soul. With every bite, I took her innocence into myself. Her purity became my own. Her sacrifice washed me clean. It was the most sacred communion any man has ever known. They say I am a monster, for I have eaten a child. They do not see that I have made her eternal. She lives in me. She is the quiet in my heart. She is the prayer upon my lips. When they strap me to the chair on the morrow, she will be with me. They will kill 2 souls, not 1. They will kill the old sinful man, and they will kill the innocent lamb that dwells inside him. And then, Lord, we shall both come home to thee at last. Thy priest, Albert. Entry 4. The Electric Sermon. January 16th, 1936. The Day of Ascension. Lord, the silence this day is of a different kind. Yesterday it was the silence of waiting. Today it is the silence that comes before the thunder. I hear their approach, though they make no sound. Their steps are muffled, reverent, like those of deacons preparing the altar. They are preparing my throne, the chair. Old Sparky, they call it, a childish name for such a holy instrument. They seek to diminish a sublime thing with mockery, for they cannot bear its true nature. This is not an execution, it is a coronation. The record holds the jury's verdict. They gave a statement after the trial, those small, frightened men. They said they believed me mad by any measure of their books and theories. But they said they voted for my conviction because I was too perilous to be left alive. Too perilous. They judged me mad, but they condemned me as a devil. Dost thou see the divine beauty in this contradiction, Lord? It is the purest confirmation thou hast ever granted me. They saw thy script upon my soul, and it filled them with such terror that they broke their own laws to remove me from the world. They did not condemn a man, they condemned a manifestation. They condemned thy terrible and holy truth, which spoke through my poor and willing flesh. They could not admit that I was both mad and wicked, for that would mean that wickedness is a power beyond their small reckonings of right and wrong. It would mean that thou art real. So they told themselves a lie. They called it justice. I call it fear. And their fear is my gospel. A priest was brought to me this morning. A young man with soft hands and a face full of earnest sorrow. He spoke of repentance, of forgiveness. He offered me a God as small and gentle as himself, a God of lambs, not of lions. I listened with courtesy. I nodded. What was I to tell him? that his prayers were the buzz of a fly in a hurricane, that the God to whom I pray is not in his books, that my God smells of blood and lightning. Instead, I asked him of the chair, of the mechanics of it. He turned pale. He stammered of the soul. But I wished to know of the flesh, of the current, of the copper wires and the brine. I wished to know the particulars of my ascension. He did not understand. He saw only the pain, not the ecstasy. He saw the punishment, not the deliverance. He left my cell a defeated man, overcome by a theology his mind could not contain. Pain is pure. The current is absolute. They will come for me soon. I will go quietly. They wrote that I confessed almost at once upon my arrest. Of course I did. Why would a prophet deny his own sermon? My deeds were my preachings. My confessions were my testament. I gave it all to them. The names, the places, the methods. I opened the book of my life for them to read, and they were too blind to see the Holy Writ. They saw only the filth. My last words, they will ask for them. The world awaits some final small wisdom or some last great apology. They will receive neither. Perhaps I will say what they have written of me. I do not even know why I am here. The irony shall outlive them. For I do know. I have never been more certain. I am here to sing the final verse of the song, the verse that is written in fire. The electric chair is the most modern pulpit in the world. It preaches a single undeniable sermon, that the body is but a vessel, a sack of meat and water that holds the spirit for a moment. They will put straps upon my arms and legs. They will set a cap upon my head, a crown of copper and wet sponge. And when the switch is thrown, thou wilt call me home in a flash of lightning. They believe they are extinguishing a life. They do not understand they are setting a legend aflame. I shall become a story they tell to frighten their children in the dark. I shall be more than flesh. I shall be an idea. The idea that the darkness has a face, and that sometimes it looks like the face of a kindly old man. The steps draw near. The time has come. No fear, only a great and final curiosity. They say there is a flash, and then nothing. They are wrong. There is the flash, and then everything. Lord, I am coming. Open the gate. Thy fool is coming home.